All right, guys, we're going to get into this. Men Against Nonsense, the movement. It's not entertainment. Have a no nonsense policy for your life. Please, guys, for your own sake, for your children's sake, for your family's sake. Like, share, and subscribe. If you like this kind of content, we're going back into Judge Joe Brown again. I'm continuing this series. The reason being is because, again, there's much to glean. Things we should have learned. If you're going to watch television, you should be trying to learn from it and not just entertain yourself to death. That is the worst way to use your time, by the way. Besides being on the internet looking at nudes and things like that. That is actually the number one worst way of using your time. Some will say, you're prudish. You're prudish. I may be. Who cares? I'm just against nonsense, and I think we have to man up and look at the things that we participate in and say, hey, this is nonsense. Let's do something different. Let's do something that works. Let's drop that logo and get into this.
It's time for Judge Joe.
An act of God wipes out a woman's stuff and gives her landlord someone to blame. Plaintiff Natasha Adams is suing her landlord for damaged property. Defendant Tuan Tran says the damages are not his responsibility. Now it's Joe time.
Ms. Adams, you're suing your former landlord, Mr. Tran, for $25.85. You say several of your personal items were damaged when a bedroom was flooded due to an improperly built room.
Yes, sir.
The defense, Mr. Tran, is that the lease specifically stipulates that acts of God are not subject to compensation by the landlord. And we're talking about locally when we had that very, very heavy rain last week or so of December, I believe.
Yes,
a couple of
yes,
weeks
sir.
of December. Please explain your complaint, ma'am, if you would.
Okay, well, when I moved into Juan's house, he promised me he was going to fix this and this and that.
Fix
he
what
never
now?
did. Like repairs, he's supposed to fix the sprinklers on the outside.
Okay, the sprinklers in the yard.
Which
there
I
was
wasn't in
one
a hurry.
toilet that needed some work, apparently.
Oh, my
Interior
God.
paint, hold on, let me see if I've got this, and replace certain tiling.
Yes.
That's when you moved in March of year last, and I believe this was a Section 8 situation.
Let me say this, as a person who is interested in real estate and looking to further get into property investment, real estate investment myself. Don't be a sleaze if you're into that. Like if you're going to rent out a property for someone, if you've ever been a renter before, you should just from that looking at it from that perspective, you probably wanted the best. I hope you wanted the best for yourself. Why wouldn't you want to do unto others as you want done unto you? So why not either fix the property prior to moving someone in? I understand you may need to keep your income flowing, or make sure that you keep your word, right? Like, keep your word. A man should keep his word. He should be known from keeping his word, especially a man against nonsense. You should be known for keeping your word. Like, people should know you. Like, he always comes through. He does everything he says he's going to do. Is anyone perfect? No. I understand that. However, again, you have to put up an honest effort to keep your word. It damages your credibility to not keep your word. Second of all, you're talking about safety and liability. You're taking a risk on yourself by having, I say, damaged tiles. I say your tenant trips because the floor is not level because you have, damaged tiles. Why would you take that? Like, even for your own safety, it would just make sense just to fix these things so that you prevent being in spaces like this guy is right now, right? So, I mean, stuff like sprinklers outside, I can see that. But when it comes to people getting hurt, like, that's nonsense. Those things need to be fixed ASAP, like ASAP, right? And one thing I probably never mentioned in these videos so far is that, I'm a carpenter by trade, some of this stuff doesn't take that much time to repair. It's just actually setting the time aside to accomplish what needs to be accomplished for the tenant's sake and for your own liability.
Situation, and you were paying $400 of the $1,300 rent, and the state of California was paying the balance of the $1,311. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Now we come to December 21st of last year. What happens?
Okay, December 21st, I had a housing inspection. So when I woke up that morning to go get the kids up because they were off track, my son's room was flooded. The whole room was flooded.
Now, let me ask you a question. You say that this was a patio that had been enclosed.
Yes.
Now, was it supposed to be a bedroom, or you just used it as a bedroom?
I don't know. When I moved in the house, and he said he had a 3-bedroom house with a...
That was a good question, though, Judge Joe Brown. That's the thing, because if it wasn't supposed to be used as a bedroom, maybe this guy isn't liable, but also as a prudent man, right, he should have made it very clear this room is not to be used or this space is not to be used as a bedroom. Okay, it can be a living room area, what have you, but not. It's not sealed, insulated in a way that the rest of the house is. And sometimes that happens when you know, remodeling or modifications are made to a home. Some outside areas get enclosed, but they're not up to par for being a bedroom. Now, if what she's saying is correct, he said it was 3 bedrooms when it really wasn't, in order to, I guess, raise the rent. I mean, that's dishonest and dishonorable at best. And that's just nonsense.
bonus room. It was an enclosed patio, but all he was going to do was fix the floor. But the previous tenants that lived there before I did, it was a room. They used it as a room also.
They use it as a room. Now,
Yes.
we're talking about an 11-year-old, 15, and 17-year-old. You're 20.
Now, just because someone else does something doesn't mean it's the right use, right? So, we've all heard the saying, just because all your friends jump off the cliff, you're going to jump off the cliff with them. Right, so just because the previous tenants used that space as a room doesn't mean it was intended to be a room. We have to keep that in mind. But also, again, because this is about men and men against nonsense, he either should have declared that it was not to be used as a room, or that it was up to par, up to code, up to spec to be used as a room, and therefore the flooding would be his responsibility, because he was honest enough to state what the intent of the room was for, right? So again, you have to take a no-nonsense policy for your life. If you're going to, when you get into real estate investment and you're renting these properties out, or you're selling them, or you're renovating them, you're into construction. Again, I'm a carpenter by trade. You have people's lives in your hand based on what you're doing. And you can take all the shortcuts you want, but you could end up killing someone. And I mean, that's nonsense. Like, I take carpentry very seriously. When I do stuff, I mean, safety of my crew. I mean, safety of other trades in the space that we're working in. Safety of the people who are going to occupy the space when we're done. We can't play around. Somebody could die from you not doing this work properly, or you trying to save a couple $1,000. That's unacceptable. I mean, imagine if that young boy would have died over this. Imagine if those walls would have blew in and fell down on him. That would have been a tragedy. And in which case I would say he belongs in jail versus, just being sued. But let's keep going.
A year-old is, I take it, not living with you, or is that an
Yeah, my
incorrect?
20-year-old is still living with me. She was pregnant at the time.
Why wasn't she with her husband or whatever it may be? Oh, she doesn't have one.
Correct.
Continue, please.
Okay, so I had the 2 girls in the room, and my oldest daughter was pregnant, was in there, and my son was in the enclosed patio. And I've been telling Twan the house is too small, and also I had been telling Housing the
Telling
house
him the house is too small?
Yeah, I wanted to move. I wanted him to fix the repairs in my house. I know I'm not the only person. I've never yelled at him.
Your house is too small, so I want to break the lease agreement because I chose to have my son come back and live with me. And my 20-year-old daughter, who ought to be with a husband, is pregnant out of wedlock, so that'll be a grandchild, a daughter, a son.
Hey, look, Judge Joe Brown is just like, he is onslaughting her right now. And, I mean, everything that he's saying is spot on, though, right? Because when you chose the space, you were supposed to determine whether the space was large enough for your needs at that time. I do understand that emergencies happen, so that means then you have to adjust. I mean, technically, if she secured the property in a lease and 2 of those individuals or 1 of those individuals weren't on the lease from the beginning, she was in violation of the lease right there, right? But again, this is not about her. It's actually about the landlord, and the fact of the matter is that from what I can see so far, okay, maybe I'm speaking presumptuously, but what I can see so far, okay, he was not effective at communicating the purposes of the spacing. To a house flooding like that, there's some shoddy carpentry going on. I don't know if it's his fault or whoever the contractors were, but I still would blame him because you're supposed to get that work inspected. You're supposed to get that work inspected. Something like that should not happen just from a storm. If it was like a once in a lifetime monsoon or something like that, I'd understand. I'm not hearing that. That's not what I'm hearing. It looks like bad craftsmanship, trying to save a couple bucks. I mean, she's culpable for a few things as well, but this is men against nonsense, okay? Men against nonsense. No nonsense policy.
Daughter and a daughter, and your place is too small. I need to break the lease. But let's get to the case.
Okay, the case is the room flooded. I have videotapes of it, of everything.
Wait. What about this part of your lease that says acts of God are not covered by the landlord?
First of all, I never signed a lease. That's not my signature on the lease, if you can see.
Whoa.
And I never...
Whoa. Well, then that, you know what? They're both to blame, but he's to blame even more. If she didn't sign the lease, why is she living in your property? Why is she living in your property? What did you expect to happen? If this is true, what would you expect? Would you expect someone to be honest with you when things happen in the property and they haven't signed the lease? There's no leasing agreement. That's quite strange. Quite strange indeed.
Your
Had a
signature.
copy.
No.
No, I didn't say he forged my signature.
Well, your son signed it on your behalf.
Because I was not there.
But you're still subject to the terms and conditions of the occupancy.
Well, I've never seen a lease.
You say he should be responsible for...
Wow, this is actually a little bit ridiculous. The son signed the lease on her behalf. I mean, I still look at this landlord. I would not have allowed the... Was the son a minor? Wait a minute. There was a 20-year-old child, if I caught that correct. Well, not child, but a 20-year-old who was pregnant. Did he allow a minor to sign a lease? Something. I mean, this whole thing is nonsense. His landlord was just trying to get paid, and I get it. I mean, we all have our economic needs, but it's certain things that you just don't do as a man. Okay, you don't sign contractual agreements with minors on the behalf of women. That's just, I mean, that's dumb. This is real. This this has turned out to be a mess.
Damage and mildew to your clothes, but in your complaint you specifically say that because of the flooding due to the weather, you use your clothes to sop up the water. Now, how is he responsible for that?
First of all, the clothes were in a bag. I did not know there was a hole in the bottom of the bag. The clothes were soaking wet when I checked the bag.
Well, why didn't you say that in your complaint instead of my clothing, my son's clothing was damaged because I used them to soak up the water?
And since they were already wet, I put them on the floor and I washed them myself. I wasn't even going to sue this man because I know it's not his fault.
Why didn't you just wash the wet clothes?
I did. I washed everything. Why he couldn't come help me clean up his house? He couldn't even call me. He didn't even apologize to me.
Why should he apologize?
It's his house, his property.
But you have a lease.
I did not know his house was faulty.
I do agree with her to one extent. He should have came and helped get that situation straight. It's his property. It's his investment. If you thought that she would be responsible for it, even if it was a man, right? If you thought someone else is going to be more responsible for your property than you will be, you're not thinking clearly at all. At all. He should have been responsible for his property. He should have came. He should have came and just to check it out. Which could have helped avoid, like she's saying, again, I don't agree with the philosophy, but like she's saying, she wouldn't have sued him if he would have, or at least she claims she wouldn't have sued him if he would have shown up and helped and made a gesture of apology. See how far things go when you don't take action, guys? Right? When you don't man up, right? It's your property. You should be responsible. You should check it out when damages happen. You don't just, okay.
I did not know it was
not
wrong.
Faulty. Everybody had problems.
But the whole
so
point
why should he come over when his lease doesn't require it and be nice and sop this up? And by the way, I looked at your pictures. The television is on a stand. How does it get water damage?
Okay, as you
I
can
looked
see,
at your pictures
see
where
the video?
how do we get a VCR down on the ground to get water damage?
It's his room. You can't put nothing on the floor. He's 17. Everything has to be put up on
His
stands.
Xbox is on the floor, not on the shelving that I see in your pictures. His cell phone was on the floor. The VCR is on the floor. His games were on the floor. And miscellaneous items are on the floor of his room. You're supposed to be mama. You don't go to work. Didn't you teach your son how to deal with good housekeeping? What's 17 got to do with it?
He's 17. I go in there and I clean up after him.
So a 17-year-old is beyond your control, and you know, he's totally
I gotta tell you, since this is Men Against Nonsense, I can talk about the 17-year-old boy. Now, hey, fellas. You have a son, he's 17, he can't pick up after himself, can't clean up after himself. She just says she goes in the room and clean up after him. That's absolutely ridiculous. No woman should have to go and clean up after a 17-year-old boy. He's approaching the legal status of being a man, an adult status. And I mean, this is ridiculous, and I blame that on men, not her per se. I know Judge Joe Brown will put it on her because there's no dad in the picture. But the question is, where's dad? Where's dad? Dad should be training that young man to be a man. Period. And if there was a dad in the picture, they probably wouldn't have been living in the space that they were living in as well, right? Because, you know, he should have been responsible for making sure that his family had a safe and nice place to stay. That's not always easy to accomplish. I get that. But you live and you learn and you move on and you make sure you live in better accommodations, right? Just makes sense.
He just throws everything on the floor instead of putting it on the shelf.
You can say that. That's why he didn't live with me. Yeah, you can say that.
We'll be right back with Judge Joe Brown.
That property, because he's a new owner, that property has had several code enforcement violations. The city has been out there several times for that property.
When?
When? Before Twine owned it.
The plaintiff in this case says the home she rented was so shoddy and in need
You
of...
know what? What I do appreciate about this guy though, his demeanor is real. He's real cool. He hasn't interrupted or anything. He must know she's gonna shoot herself in the foot. It's kind of sad, but I will give him that much credit. His demeanor and his posture has just been, I'm just gonna let her talk, and I'm gonna be cool about all of this.
repairs, and when it rained, her son's room flooded and their belongings were destroyed. She's suing her landlord for damages. Let's get back to the case.
Okay, tell me about this.
Yes, Your Honor. According to the lease, I'd like to pass up my copy of the lease.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to call your attention to the first page, the paragraph number 5. It says that the tenants are allowed to have 4
Yes,
people.
it was an unauthorized tenant. The premises
Exactly.
shall not be occupied by any person other than those designated and shown as a tenant herein, with the exception of the following named people: Naya Eddington, Zani Adams, Zakia Adams. And oh, by the way, you're in violation of California welfare laws. The person you have in there is not authorized to be a beneficiary of the tax dollars.
Yes.
You
So,
know what? You're in.
They added my son back on
What is wrong with
housing.
you? You are confessing under oath, young lady, to welfare fraud.
Yeah.
I don't receive
Yes,
welfare.
because the documentation that I guess your son signed it for you says that only the designated individuals are entitled to be present or live in the premises. So you
how
have
did housing put
occupants
him back on
that
my
are not
lease?
authorized under California welfare law to be in there. You breached his lease.
That was the point I was making earlier, that him being a responsible property owner, should have dealt with that immediately, right? He should have dealt with that immediately, and this isn't as controversial as many other things that we've looked at, but if he would have dealt with the fact that there was this issue with occupancy, an extra occupant who is not on the lease, if he would have dealt with that from the beginning, they wouldn't have been going through this. He could have preempted this, and this is the reason why this channel is called Men Against Nonsense. It's spotting the nonsense early and getting it out of the way, or getting it out of the way. Just get it out of the way. Deal with it early before it becomes a big problem like this, right? So now, instead of doing whatever business he has to take care of, he's in court dealing with this, when she was already in violation of the lease. But he, again, wasn't responsible enough to deal with the issue from the beginning. So, from my point of view, guys, he invited this nonsense. And that's the reason for making this video. Don't invite nonsense into your life. You don't have to.
That's point one.
How? When housing put him back on my lease.
Well,
And
he's
the
not
court
on
gave
there.
him back to me October 20th.
He's
and
not
the
on
housing
there.
put him back on
He's
my
not
housing.
on there. Does she understand she's testifying that she breached the lease and she's
I
in
breached
default?
the lease. Oh my God, because my son is back living with me.
May I ask one more thing?
Certainly.
Through the housing authority, assistant from County Riverside, to receive this one, and in order for the property to be eligible for this program, the housing authority had to come in to inspect the house. And
I'm aware of that.
And inspect annually. And these conditions they have right now, they are not the pre-existing conditions. It was approved and passed by the housing authority once you move in.
Yesterday, I went to the city and I went down to City Hall and they researched it. That property, because he's a new owner, that property has had several code enforcement violations. The city has been out
When?
there several times
When?
for that property.
When?
When? Before Twine owned it. The fence was never fixed. I have pictures of the fence in the backyard.
Before he owned it, he acquired it and he renovated it, and it passed inspection last
Okay,
year.
well,
so
the city
that's
be-
If it passed inspection, it passed inspection. There's inspection process is not completely infallible, but If it passed inspection, you know, hey.
We
Contacted
do
him.
when we get with the
Okay,
entrepreneurial
well,
thing.
okay, the city we contacted him. I'm just saying the city will be contacted him.
Oh, how? Oh, you're gonna have? I'll have vengeance.
I wouldn't even do Twan like that. I'm not even mad at Twan. I've never yelled at this man. I've never cussed at my owner. He's never done nothing to me. Nothing.
Now,
anything.
wait a
So
minute.
then why?
You haven't
So why did she take him to court? Oh man, guys. This trends along another video that I made. Like, you have to be careful doing business with women. I'm sorry. Women, I know you're not gonna like hearing me say that, but a lot, unfortunately, is that what happens is when emotional dispositions are not placated by a man, usually vengeance is taken in some form or way, and that's what she's doing. She's taking vengeance on him because he didn't come apologize or help her clean the house, and that's very childish. She's 39, if I caught the age correctly. It's very childish. Even though I think a goodwill gesture should have been, or come help, and it's your property, it's your investment. You don't want mold and water damage in your property. That just makes sense from a business mindset. From where I stand, on the back end, you again, be very, very cautious doing business with women. Be very, very cautious. I'm not saying don't do business with women. Be very, very cautious because you never know what you're going to get. You should be cautious doing business with anyone in general. So I'm not singling out women. The issue is that men are going to operate in a different space with each other because there's always the subtle potential for violence, like physical violence. Versus with a man and a woman, she's not gonna get upset and hit you most likely. She will find a way to screw you, right? So you have to be very, very careful, and also don't take advantage of women when you're doing business because you know she can't physically hurt you. That's also dishonorable. Don't do that stuff, guys. Anyway, you like this content? Subscribe, share. Press that like button. Support links are in the description below. I'll catch you guys on the next one.